How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
You guys keep up the good work, man. Podcasts are the way of the future.
It's Thursday, so you know what that means. Another episode of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Looking forward to this podcast. I know many people will say that this is the slow time of year, but I'll say this. A lot of great action going on, not in the major sports. Tennis, Wimbledon's going on. The World Series of Poker's going on. So for me, I'm all about it, baby. I'm kind of peeking into other stuff at this time. Yawning over there?
That was me yawning. No, who really cares about freaking Wimbledon? Get the hell out of here. You for real?
We got it on in the background.
Yeah, we do, because it's the only thing that's on.
Right.
I mean, it's either that or we're going to put the best of Brazzers on.
Yeah.
And that'll be weird. I'm not trying to get a boner in front of you. There ain't nothing going on. Right? This is the worst time in sports. The absolute worst time in sports. It's absolutely brutal right now. We've got the All-Star game on our rundown sheet here. And I can't wait to talk about the All-Star game. And you'll see why when we get to it. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But if you didn't have NBA free agency and you didn't have the possibility of the Pistons being in on a massive trade, I don't know what we would talk about today. I have zero idea. I mean, we'd figure something out. We absolutely would, because we always do. But Jesus Christ, I have no clue what we would be discussing.
Oh my gosh, we could talk about the World Cup, the females, how they celebrated their...
Oh, you just want to talk about them twerking, which,
Yeah.
Cool. I mean, cool, yeah. I mean, we were just talking World Cup before we turned the mics on.
Yeah,
but
there's a lot to talk about. If you see, I think what you're saying is there's a lot to talk about, but there's not a lot that you're passionate about. See, me, I'm crazy. I'm passionate about all those things. I'm watching poker 4 hours a night. I'm like,
you're a
oh,
degenerate.
Richard Seymour's in it. He's actually making some moves. He's got over 2 million chips in the World Series of Poker. So it's good stuff going on. See, I think that's what some people who complain about it and people who ask, well, what do I do to get by? There's other stuff to get into that's really exciting.
Let me ask you this real quick. I'm assuming you watched the World Cup.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, you watched the Women's World Cup.
Yes.
Did you watch the Men's Gold Cup?
I was disappointed. I saw the final game versus Mexico, and I was like, okay, I'm all about it. Let's go beat Mexico. Let's go get the cup. And Mexico won the game.
Okay, so Women's World Cup was appointment viewing for me. I made sure I was up. I made sure I was in front of the TV at the time that the game started. I tried to get a little soiree put together to watch the Men's Gold Cup. I was out in Indiana, so I tried getting a couple of the guys that I hang out with out there. A couple of them are really into soccer. All of our wives are Brazilian, so they like soccer, but they don't really care about the U.S., and they sure as shit don't care about Mexico. But I tried putting a little something together. It didn't really work out because the game started at 9 o'clock. And because I couldn't get anything put together, I didn't care. Women's World Cup and women's soccer in the United States is much more impactful and much more important than the men's team. It blows my mind. And the women earn roughly maybe a quarter, maybe an eighth of what the men make.
So you're down with them.
Mind-blowing.
So you're down with their lawsuit. They deserve to be paid equally?
Dude, they deserve to be paid more. Honestly, they really do. It's absolutely crazy. Like I said, the women's game was appointment viewing for me. I made sure I was up and in front of the TV and didn't move. The men's game I wanted to watch, and then it became an afterthought. I got caught up in NCIS Los Angeles, and next thing I know, I had a message, I think, from Bleacher Report come across my phone at like 11:15 or whenever the game ended, that the United States men's lost to Mexico 1-0. Mind you, they lost to Mexico's like C squad.
So I understand, like you said, that men's soccer versus women's soccer, but the crazy part was the men's team didn't even qualify for the World Cup.
I know,
and they're starting over, and it seems like they do have a star in Pulisic, this young cat, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Whereas the women, they're dominant. They're the it team. It's unbelievable, their dominance. But they didn't, and they make waves too.
It's crazy.
They stand up for themselves, and they're making noise politically. So all good for them. I think that they should be, in 2019, men and women should be paid equally for the stuff that they're doing, especially with the results that they're bringing to the table.
Absolutely. I was telling you before the show, it blows my mind how the U.S., I don't even know how it's amazing that we're starting with this topic because this was not on the rundown at all. It's just us talking. It blows my mind that the women are able to just plug and play. A couple years ago, it was Abby Wambach. From Abby Wambach, it goes to Carly Lloyd leading the team. From Carly Lloyd, it goes to Megan Rapinoe leading the team. Next year, it'll probably be Alex Morgan. After her, it'll probably be Kristen Press. I just named 5 different women. I know Pulisic for the men, and that's it.
And the coach, because he's always on Jim Rome and stuff like that. So I want to ask you this too. I want to bring this to the table because many people complain regarding the fact that, society is misogynistic and that they don't let women celebrate, and the way that they were twerking, the celebration when, a goal was scored, I think in the semis, and the young lady put her fingers up when they were playing England.
Alex Morgan took a sip out of the tea.
Exactly. And people forget, okay, it's not misogyny. It's not men versus women. It's not, this thing where women can't celebrate and men can, okay? There's this age-old adage, and I'm like I said, bringing it back to tennis. I was a Pete Sampras guy. Mm-hmm. And how did Pete Sampras conduct his business? Calm, cool, collected. He would blow by 40 aces in a match, would walk off, handle his business, and be gone. Then there was this new guy that came across.
So funny, because I was such an Agassi fan.
Exactly. That's why we work together, because I'm the Sampras guy, you're the Agassi guy. And I think that's where the feud is lying. It's not men versus women. It's the notion of being humble. It's that there's this notion that certain people, like a Tim Duncan, they go about their business, they handle things well, and everything works out, okay? And then you have this other group of people that are like, no, go out there, have fun, do that kind of stuff. And it's your preference. It's not right or wrong. It's not misogyny. This country's not misogynistic. Of course, there's going to be pockets of people that are chauvinistic and they don't care and they're anti-woman and they put women in a box. Fine. But the idea is this. It's just this age-old debate whether you like your athletes to show emotion and be expressive, or do you want them to be humble, act like you've been there before. In the NBA, like I said, the Spurs, people kind of were not down with the Spurs because they were kind of boring. You're down with the teams that are like rah, rah. So that's where I looked at it with the soccer. I'm like, okay, these women, they wanted to express themselves. I had no problem with it. The England thing was a little bit of a trolling situation. The way they celebrated getting drunk and having a good time. Look, it's the ultimate prize. It's sports. So we don't have to take this moral high ground. It's just the way in which people view the sporting landscape. And it's fascinating because those that are anti-braggadocious, anti-celebrations, they're a little bit vocal online and things like that. So I don't have a problem with it because I know both ways. I was a Sampras guy. But at the same time, from time to time, when you're playing sports or you do something good, you got to puff your chest out and say, hey, look at me. And what a great way. I thought Alex Morgan doing that with the T was epic. And the funny part was people took that and made marijuana jokes and said, why is she holding up a joint to her lips? I was like, oh my God, this country is hilarious.
Yeah,
Good
I thought
stuff.
It was great, man. I loved it.
Yeah.
Especially with everything that went into the England game. There was much more to that story than just the U.S. showboating when they scored a goal. England was trolling the U.S. almost the entire time, especially at their hotel. So there's a little bit of a backstory there. But I love the U.S. women winning the World Cup. At no point did I fear the Netherlands. There was a point there where I started to grow concerned. It was probably like the 55th minute, and the way the game was being called started to really frustrate me. I was like, they just need to break through. They just need one solid shot to break through. And once they did, they just kind of got rolling, and you could see the pressure and everything came off of them, and they just played. And it was amazing. It was really good. So congratulations to the women. The men, they still suck. Hopefully they can figure it out. But what we've got on the rundown is Kawhi Leonard moving to the West and how that totally shakes things up and impacts your Detroit Pistons.
One way to get through the doldrums of summer is NBA free agency is sick.
Crazy.
And unfortunately, the Pistons, we're in the mix. We're in the conversation with Russell Westbrook, and we're going to give our thoughts regarding that here in just a few moments. But again, when I looked at how this all played out, you had Kawhi going to the Clippers. You have KD going to the Nets. And you realize, wow, there are new franchises that are getting these stars. Where are the Pistons in all of this? begging. And basically, the Pistons are on the outside looking in and are probably going to be forced, if they do try to make a move for Westbrook, to maybe give up 1, maybe 2 first-round picks. So it just sucks because if you're a Pistons fan and you're going, yeah, we picked up Snell, yeah, we picked up a draft pick that we're not going to see for 4 years, you feel like you're an outsider. You feel like you're not in the mix. And it's so exciting because of the fact that Laker Nation was wondering, is Kawhi going to come to us? Is Kawhi Leonard going to fulfill this squad and build us a super team? And then you realize, wow, Kawhi is such an OG, went to the Clippers and said, I'm interested. I'm potentially down for the cause. I'll return home. But you got to go out there and you got to get me another piece. I don't want to come to a team and be the guy by myself. I want some talent. And he went out there, and the Clippers were like, okay, we go to OKC, and we unload a bunch of draft picks.
5 draft picks.
For Paul George.
That's nuts.
So you got Paul George, and you got Kawhi Leonard basically reinvigorating the Clipper franchise. I just think that, in the last 3 years, everyone's talking about it. NBA free agency is sick because basically you're getting this subset of 2 guys, 2 talented individuals going to all these new teams. It just sucks that the Pistons were not in the position to put themselves in the limelight. You just couldn't do it. You hamstrung yourself with the cap. You gave Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson way too much money. You went out there and you traded for Blake Griffin when potentially you could have been sucking these last 4 years and just picking up draft picks, and then now maybe gone out there and made a pitch for a Paul George and a Kawhi. You could have made that pitch, especially if Kawhi was in Toronto, it's local. You could have said, hey, you know what? We have a potential to put ourselves in a position. Or if you had just, selected properly, you could have added, Kawhi Leonard to a group with Donovan Mitchell.
Yep.
If you would have just selected properly in the draft. So it just seems like when the organization was faced with the decisions, they made the wrong ones. And now they're faced with another huge test, the Pistons, in deciding what to do with Russell Westbrook. But Kawhi heading to the Clippers, it just makes it a little bit easier for the Pistons in that the West now is stacked.
I think the entire landscape of the NBA has been altered. It opens up everything, especially for the Pistons.
There's legit 10 teams that you could watch and be really interested, invested in.
We used to talk about a big 3. It seems like everybody now has a dynamic duo, which I find much more appealing because it's not just LA as far as the Lakers, and it's not just the Clippers, but you look kind of across the board. You look at what's going on in Brooklyn. You look at what's going on in Boston. You look at Milwaukee. You look at Philadelphia. All these teams have a legitimate shot. I think we both agree, both the Clippers and the Lakers have probably the best shot, but it is wide open. As far as your Pistons are concerned, with Kawhi moving to the Clippers and not going to the Lakers, this makes everything much more feasible for the Pistons to actually make some noise when they get into the playoffs. You don't have to worry about the Raptors anymore. Who's at the top in the East? We'll put Milwaukee up there, who I think they're a great team. They swept Detroit, but they swept Detroit without Blake, and when Blake did play, he had a robo knee and was really not that effective. Okay, so you had a really beat-up Pistons squad. And I think Blake just broke down over the course of a very long season where he was asked to do things that he necessarily wasn't familiar with, but he took it on his shoulders and he did it because he's an OG. If you can manage Blake better as far as his time goes, I think the Pistons have a real shot to make it to the second round. Now, all of that being said, going back to what they have to face in the East, Milwaukee's probably number 1, right? After that, maybe Boston. Boston has a couple pieces on that team, but there are things that have to happen. Jason Tatum's got to rebound after last season. He's got to become a much better player. That team's going to look dramatically different now, and I think they will be a little bit more fluid offensively because they don't have Kyrie Irving stagnating everything. You still have the incredible length of the 76ers. They're a very good team, but these 3 teams I just named, I don't think they terrify you, do they? They don't. And as you move your way through the rest of the East, the Pistons are right there. The Raptors are no longer there. The Raptors have some guys, and the Raptors are going to be competitive, but I don't think the Raptors are this stalwart team where you're like, oh, just pencil them into the finals. The East is wide open, and the Pistons can capitalize, which is why I think it becomes almost intuitive and important for the Pistons to really consider trading for Russell Westbrook, almost to the point of no matter what it costs. The issue with Westbrook is that contract. His contract after in year 3 and 4, I think balloons to $35 and $42 million, which is absolutely insane. On top of that, he might be a locker room cancer.
And the other part that people are noting is that he's a 29% three-point shooter in a league where you want to shoot three at a high clip.
But I tend to like a guy who's a little bit crazy.
Mm-hmm.
He's batshit crazy. He's nuts. I like a guy who's ultra competitive. He would stab his mother to win a game, and I like that about a guy. I do.
Hasn't been out of the first round in a minute. Not a real leader.
He hasn't. But could you imagine pairing him with Blake? Right?
It'd be better.
You're not going to have Reggie. All right, and there's a possibility you could include Andre in the trade. I don't think that will happen because Andre and Gores are butt buddies. So you're basically your big three now would look like Russell Westbrook. It will be Blake Griffin, and then it'll be Andre Drummond, basically cleaning up boards when Westbrook is bricking threes.
It's better than what you have.
Yes, I think it's much more competitive, especially with the way the East is now laid out. If you go and you trade for him.
See, here's the thing, because I wrote definitely go get him, because I take the fan perspective and I say, look, I don't want to go to LCA. I don't want to pay the money. You bring that big three to LCA, I'll buy some tickets.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Do I think that squad could compete in the East and maybe win a round or two? Sure. That's better than what we have.
I don't think they're going to win a championship.
They're not winning a championship.
But I think they're going to be much more competitive.
But now the part that I think many people aren't asking is, do I believe that with them clearing the books, having clean sheets, do I think they're actually going to go select 4 young guys that are going to be a core that's going to compete with these big names? No. So in the end, I don't believe that rebuilding for the Pistons is going to lead to a championship because eventually speaking, you got to get a guy like a Kawhi Leonard to actually come to your team. So you can build a young core and maybe make some noise and then build it. But I just feel like the way in which the Pistons are building, that doesn't lead me to believe that they're going to actually go and win a championship.
Right.
So I'm looking at, you know what? Take the ultimate gamble, maybe make a 1 or 2 year run, maybe make it to the Eastern Conference Final, make it to the NBA Final, and who knows? Maybe you play the Clippers and Kawhi gets hurt. See, that's what I'm saying, and I know that's not the long-term approach. The safe approach would be clean the sheets.
I mean, if you look at what Toronto did, that's what happened with KD, right?
Exactly.
KD got hurt.
That's what happens.
And they have a title out the deal.
But see, here's the problem, okay? I don't want in 3 years when the books are clean and you got all this money to say, okay, we got all this money. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, all right, let's go sign a Ben Gordon. Let's go sign a Charlie Villanueva. I don't want to go do that. Or have it where we got this guy and he's like, I ain't coming to Detroit. What the hell are you guys talking about? I don't want to be rejected with all this money. So that's the problem, is that, you know, with the Pistons, you're kind of forced to build a team, which, again, leads you to potentially, you know, if you can build it and have the run like Joe Dumars built, where you build this young nucleus and you have this run. I think that's where they're going to, is to try to build a young core of guys that can shoot. And I think Dwayne Casey's the guy, but I'm not opposed to them going out and signing Westbrook. But if it doesn't involve multiple draft picks, maybe one, I'm acceptable with that. But here's the thing, because of the fact that OKC's desperate, they have to unload this guy because of the fact that they floated his name in the deal to Toronto when Kawhi potentially could have stayed. OKC and Toronto maybe had preliminary talks about Siakam maybe coming over to OKC, and a guy like Westbrook's like, oh hell no, I carried your franchise. I've seen guys come and go. You've decimated this franchise, and you're going to do that to me? Oh hell no. But for me, I think what's going to happen is I don't see the Pistons making this move unless they can maybe unload one guy, not Sekou Doumbouya, not Luke Kennard. Maybe they're willing to do Andre Reggie in a draft pick. Maybe they're willing to do a little bit of that. But I just think that the way in which this is kind of shaping up, Westbrook's going to end up in Miami.
What if it was Andre Reggie, a 2020 first rounder, and a 20? You know, you can't trade back-to-back first-round picks, so it'd have to be a 2022 protected second-round pick.
Yeah, I think.
Would you do that?
I think,
or not? I mean, I'm sorry, a 2022 protected first-round pick.
Yeah, I'm down for it. I think it's okay, but I would try and not do it with picks. I'd rather give up players.
Right.
I'd rather give up Snell, Andre, maybe a Kennard. Maybe I would be willing to do Andre and Sekou at the same time. But if you can get the price lower, I think that Westbrook coming here would kind of excite everybody.
Yeah.
You'd have some swagger. But at the same time, there would be risks because of the fact this guy shoots a lot of threes. He's a guy that's a diva. He's got a big personality. He's willing to talk about things. He's willing to expose his thoughts regarding the locker room. And he's not one of those guys that you're going to put in a box and be PC.
Doesn't Detroit love guys like that?
I would love it. No, I think that.
Look at Rasheed Wallace. Rasheed Wallace was kind of a loose cannon and a little bit nuts.
Right.
Bob Probert was totally a loose cannon.
Yeah.
Darren McCarty, we had him on the podcast last week. Darren McCarty at certain times was a loose cannon.
But here's the problem. There's one additional piece that we need with the loose cannon. You got to produce. Rashid got a ring.
You're absolutely right.
He brought us a ring.
You're
Darren
absolutely right.
had one of the greatest goals in NHL history.
You're absolutely right.
If Russell comes here and does that and they lose in the first round and he's jacking up a bunch of shots and Blake's scoring 40 and he's doing his act and it doesn't help them, then you're going to have a problem.
Here's the thing. This is my issue. This team has essentially pigeonholed itself, right? You've got Blake Griffin. You went out, you traded for Blake Griffin, and he played miraculously last season. I think he played better than both you and I expected. And he gave you a longer stretch of play without getting hurt or really banged up than I think both you and I realized he could give you at this point in his career. All that being said, if you don't make a move like this, you're essentially telling Blake that we're just going to waste your next 2 years. So Reggie's going to come off the books at the end of this year. So he'll probably be traded at the trade deadline. So you move Reggie out. Now you have a little bit more cap flexibility. Andre's contract doesn't come up for another 2 years. Okay? So you're not going to really do anything with Andre unless you get a really sweetheart deal. All that being said, you've already been offered 2 sweetheart deals, and Gore said no way because they're boys. They hang out with each other. They go hang out on Gore's yacht together, and Andre has a little bit of say in what goes on with this team, which is dangerous, very scary. As far as Blake goes, Blake wants to win a championship, I think, right? I think that's what every player wants to do. If you don't go trade for Russell Westbrook,
what are you saying about...
What are you saying to him? What are you going to do? Because the way they're constructed right now, they're not winning anything. Right. Reggie Jackson's not good, okay? You've got Derrick Rose as his backup point guard, so his knees are a liability. And then you look at the rest of the team that's fitted around him. I don't know how you feel about Andre Drummond, but he's probably going to get a Supermax deal when his contract comes up because I don't think the Pistons are moving away from him.
I think a lot of fans hope he opts out.
I hope so, too. I hope he goes someplace else. I don't want him here. He's not good.
You believe that?
He's a good rebounder. Cool. You don't provide anything else to this team.
45% of the fans on our poll, when I asked on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, I asked which Detroit athlete irritates you the most. 45% voted the combination of Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson.
Yeah,
it's just a situation in which whether you believe it's accurate or not in terms of their worth, the fans of Detroit haven't bought in. And especially when Chauncey in the last series calls out Andre for being lazy.
Yeah.
He called him out. This is not us.
He checks out of games.
That's not us. So I think it's time to move on. I think it's time to consider.
So then if you're Blake, what are you doing, right? So if you're not going to put anything around Blake to win.
What are you doing? You're having twerk parties in Spain?
Trade
parties?
Blake then. Do you know what I'm saying? Trade Blake then. If you really want to, if you're going to go the direction that you're talking about by building with a young core, trade Blake. Blake is coming off arguably one of his best seasons of his career, especially at this advanced age that he's at currently, okay? Trade him. Get something in return. Get a first-round pick. Get a young player. If you're going to build this core, there's no reason that Blake should be here because he's not going to be here when you win. Just like when the trade deadline rolls around, you're going to flip Reggie because there's no point for him to be here. He has nothing to do with the future of this team. That's part of the reason you signed Derrick Rose to a 2-year deal. So Derrick Rose can then slot in and take over for Reggie when you trade him. And then next year, going into next year, you've got Derrick Rose on an expiring contract. You hopefully will draft or you will have some type of point guard who can kind of learn his way through the system. And by the time that trade deadline rolls around, you can then flip Derrick Rose and get something in return and let that new point guard take over.
So when the fall hits, do you think Westbrook is on the Pistons? They pull the trigger or are they scared?
I think they pulled it. I think they try. I don't know if they have enough to get it done.
Yeah.
I think also Westbrook really wants to be in Miami.
Yeah.
I don't think he sees himself fitting in here, which blows my mind because if he came here and he produced, he would be an incredible fan favorite. He could buy up buildings in Detroit. He has I think he has his own clothing line or he's pushing for his own clothing. You could buy up shops everywhere and put your clothing line there. You could put your clothing line right there by LCA. Honestly, you could put it right there by LCA because they have all kinds of vacant shops that they haven't put anything in, like the Illich has promised. So there you go, bro. And you could do honestly, Detroit has its own fashion. Honestly, Detroit has its own fashion sense and style. He would fit in perfectly here.
Detroit's a town where you might have your preconceived notions, but then when you come here, you'll love it.
Yes.
Especially the nightlife. You could have a good time here.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, anytime you want, you could fly out to Spain and have
twerk parties.
Have twerk parties. That was great.
Fry.
We'll talk about that in a second because that was awesome. I was like, damn. Not only one girl, it was like 6. He was partying it up with those guys.
All white girls. Too.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, Blake has a type.
Yeah. Well, he was with his boys, too. They were celebrating, having a good time.
Obviously, they all have a type.
Exactly. I want to ask you this about Kawhi and the Clippers and the Lakers, because obviously Laker fan is really disappointed. Do you think Kawhi made a mistake in going to the Clippers because of the fact that, you know what? You've won a title. You've won a couple titles. You've won a multiple MVPs. You can now go on easy street. Just ride the coattails of LeBron and Anthony Davis. Obviously, you don't have to be the man. If I'm Kawhi Leonard and you're getting all this love from the Lakers, this storied franchise, yeah, I could understand where it's going to be hard to kind of take a pitch from Magic Johnson where he's like, yeah, come to the Lakers where my former boss stabbed me in the back and released all my information and has no moral value in terms of keeping secrets and stuff like that. But at the same time, you're Kawhi Leonard. I don't know. I feel like the Lakers, in terms of what they have, are slightly better. I feel like the Lakers are a little bit closer and have a better squad right now than the Clippers. The Clippers have this defensive team with Beverly now, and they got this awesome roster. They can do some things, but I think the Lakers top end, if LeBron and Anthony Davis can handle their business and you surround them with good pieces, Danny Green's a guy I think that, solid guy. But at the same time, I would say this. If I was Kawhi Leonard, I think it was a mistake. He should have went to the Lakers.
No way, dude. He made the right decision going to the Clippers.
Why?
Here's the thing. So Lakers, like you said, top end. They're elite, right? You've got two, arguably top 6 players on your team. The thing is, they're not deep. At this point, LeBron James has to play point guard for you because you don't have a point guard on this team. They're not deep enough on this team. Whereas the Clippers, you've already mentioned, defensively they're a squad.
They're sick.
And they've got layers of players that can plug and play. You've seen it takes more than just 1 or 2 guys to win a championship, right? KD goes down. There's nobody who can step up and fill his spot. Now, me saying that, KD's arguably the best player in the NBA, so nobody but maybe LeBron James could walk in those shoes. All that being said, you need to have depth. You need to have guys where you can lean on them if an injury happens. I think going to the Clippers was the right move. On top of all that, you already know Kawhi's a different dude. I mean, what guy goes out and signs with New Balance for your gym shoe?
Yeah, right.
You got Nike, you got Reebok making you pitches,
Under
Adidas,
Armour.
everybody making you pitches, and you go sign with New Balance. So you already know he's a different dude. He values
honesty.
He values
loyalty.
honesty, respect. He values if I tell you something or we discuss something, you keeping it quiet.
Yeah.
Magic Johnson
did some damage with what he did.
Sabotaged the Lakers, whether he realized it or not, by basically discussing different parts of what Kawhi and the Lakers talked about.
Yeah.
That made Kawhi's mind up for him. He said, I'm good. There's too much dysfunction over here. I don't need this. I left the Spurs. Honestly, the Spurs were his team. That team was built around him. It was essentially, hey, we had David Robinson. From David Robinson, we go to Tim Duncan. From Tim Duncan, we're going to Kawhi Leonard. That team was built for him. It was just like the U.S. team where they just kind of plug and play with a different superstar. That's all it is, right? And Kawhi was that next superstar. And he felt, because Popovich went to the media and said, look, he's healthy. I don't know why he's not playing. You got to go talk to him. You got to go talk to his people. He felt betrayed. He likes to keep things in-house. And with L.A., with the Lakers, I should say, it's one of those things where that's not possible. It just doesn't happen. There's too much dysfunction there. So if you can't do that and you can't respect me enough to do that, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make your life a living hell. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Clippers are going to get the best of the Lakers.
Okay.
I just think there's too much depth, man. There's too many players there. The Lakers right now are trying to field a roster. And they're trying to do it with guys who want to sign the vet minimum because this is how all of LeBron's teams are put together. And you see what happens when you get to the finals. LeBron has essentially carried a team for the entire way of the season. And when he gets to the finals, it's a great thing. The guy's a phenomenal athlete. But he tends to wear down a little bit. And it becomes harder because not just because the magnitude of the games and the way the games are played gets tougher and the competition level goes up. It's because he wears down. It becomes a slugfest for him to win games. So why would I go play on that team with a guy who has to essentially carry us when I can go over here and be my own man, do my own thing, and I've got depth. I've got guys who can come in and help out. You don't need that. You've already seen how that's done. On top of that, I think I like it better for Kawhi. Look, Kawhi wins a championship with the Spurs, then goes and wins a championship with Toronto. He then goes to the Clippers. The Clippers. Like who wins a championship in Toronto? Okay. So the Spurs are a baby dynasty, right? But all that being said, they're not New York. They're not LA. They're not a hotbed per se, right? But they're the Spurs. You then go to Toronto. Who the hell wins a championship in Toronto? Only Kawhi. You then go to the Clippers. The Clip Show? For the Clippers? You could go to LA. You could have went to New York. You could have went, I don't know, Boston has history and a lineage. You could have went to Boston. You could have went anywhere. Golden State would have made room for you. Do you know what I'm saying? They wouldn't have extended Clay. They'd have brought you in. You could have went to Golden State and played on a super squad. You chose the Clippers. Good for you. You're your own man. You want to do it your own way. I think that's awesome. I think it's admirable. And I think they get a championship with the Clippers.
Nice. Okay, real quick before our first time out, what did you make a couple weeks back? Obviously, TMZ Sports, they're everywhere. They got photos, they got photogs, paparazzi, and all of a sudden
that news broke right as we ended our podcast a couple weeks ago.
So we see Blake Griffin hanging out with a bunch of NBA guys, and there's a sea of women, and they're partying, having a good time. And all of a sudden, you see like 7 women just twerking in front of him. And Blake Griffin, there's this one photo where you see him, he's just standing there, he's got this big old smile and grin on his face. And you're like, man, that's living the life.
Yeah,
out there in Ibiza, hanging out on a boat, a yacht party, a twerk party. But I would say this, you're Blake Griffin and things like that. I would do that kind of thing, but maybe class it up just a little bit, where the girls at the time when they're on the dock and things like that and they're outside, just lay out. Don't do that. Do the twerking stuff indoors where nobody can see it.
Bro. Right there.
Out in the open?
Dude, if I was Blake.
In the open.
Yes. If I was Blake, I'd be holding 2 bottles of baby oil, shooting their butts down, rubbing it in, having a good old time. The thing is, I'd have a different variation of women too, not just skinny white broads.
Right.
Like, no, I'm going to have me a couple Latinos there. I'm going to have a couple black girls with some big old booties. I'm going to have me a couple white bitches. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to have some real ethnic looking broads. Like I just shipped them over from Europe someplace. Oh yeah. And the whole time, bro, just me and baby oil, just hosing them down and having them shake that. I want that looking wet, and super wet.
It was
dripping.
Blake Griffin and Chandler Parsons who threw the
That's what it was.
party.
I thought it was Channing Frye. Chandler Parson, you're right.
Yeah, so you
no,
look at
wet, bro.
See, don't you think though he does have an image a little bit to uphold? Like you're a role model. Look, we all know for the NBA, for young kids that support you. I mean, look, this is out in the open.
Just doing it right there. I don't care.
You don't care?
Okay. Wasn't it Chuck who said, I'm not your kid's role model? Like you should be your kid's role model? I'm not here to be your kid's role model.
We all know he's doing that kind of stuff, but I'm saying, like, look, it's nothing wrong with just hanging out on the boat, sipping some alcohol.
Did this hurt your heart?
No, I just say,
This made you upset? You mean to tell me
I would be upset they got caught?
You mean to tell me that me and you somehow we hijack a boat, a yacht, I should say, and we're out there in Ibiza, and we've got all these thoughts around, and they want to do a twerk party for us? You're gonna be like, no, my daughters. Get the hell out of here. Don't sell me that.
Or there'd be like maybe a sea of guys around so that nobody sees it's me.
No, get out of here.
Let it happen.
Get out of here. You would not. Honestly, you would be like, hold on. I've got a bucket of baby oil.
Hold on,
Let me dump this on you. And you'd be on, and you being the social media king that you are.
It'd be all over.
Yes. Everybody. Andrea would be calling my phone. What is John doing? Exactly. I just seen a post on Facebook.
Exactly. It was great to see. I was like, in my book, I'm like, man, what an OG.
You just be like sending pictures through the Flick app.
Exactly.
Oh, man, showing everybody. Look at it. Hey, guys, look where we're doing. Look where we're at.
Look where we're at. It's great. We want to do a podcast real fast? Let's get some recording.
Calling Vito, how soon can you get out here?
Exactly. It's good stuff, man. Blake Griffin knows how to have a good time, man. I don't know. It's just interesting to look too, because are you not aware of this paparazzi? I mean,
everywhere. I get what you're saying, right? This dude's on vacation. His season just wrapped up. His bionic knee
looks a lot better on that party.
Has been repaired.
Yeah, exactly.
Either that or he's walking on something else that's sticking straight. I'm not really sure.
Exactly.
But he's on vacation. Let him have a good time. He doesn't have any crazy white women that he's attached to anymore. She's over in California, right? Baby's mom, isn't that where she's at?
Yeah.
B's mom, California. So, I mean, he's got a type. He likes what he likes, and that's cool. And he's just having a good old time.
Having a good old time, him and Chandler Parsons. Uh-huh. We gotta get invited to one of those things, man.
I'd love to go to a twerk party.
Can we cover your twerk party? We're like, okay, I want to do a deep dive. How do these women get on? Like, do they have to to have an application? Do they got to sign an NDA? Are you hooking up with like 1, 2, 3 of them?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Do you and Chandler what do you do if you like the same girl? Do you guys have a problem, or you're like, I'll take turns, no problem.
Eiffel Tower, baby.
It's all good. The breakdown of the twerk party. So, Blake, great off season. Tell me. I want to know about your time in Ibiza. You recommend it?
When you go to cover the Pistons, you gotta ask him.
Of course.
Just pull us up, Blake. Can we just talk about your twerk
off
party?
the record? The twerk party was good.
How do you get one of those started?
Yeah.
I need to know.
You want to do that during the All-Star break?
I got a pontoon boat. Do you think I can make this happen?
Blake Griffin, OG, man. You made us laugh. You basically, we're living vicariously through you here at DocNJock.
Very vicariously.
All right, let's take our first time out. Show love to 2 great sponsors and come back. We'll talk a little bit about the All-Star game and some drama going on with the Cats that play at Comerica Park. We'll talk about all that next, second half of the podcast. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc and Jock here for 2 great sponsors, the Motor City Pawnbrokers and the Flick application. We would not be able to keep the lights on, the studio mics hot here in Sterling Heights without great support of our sponsors. The Motor City Pawnbrokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for quality brand name new and pre-owned merchandise with locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren. Their mission is to deliver exceptional value. For all information and for all the great deals, go check out MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnbrokers.com. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that we've said on this podcast, head on over to Flick. It's real easy. All you got to do is find the invite link on our social media platform, click on it, and within minutes, you're signed up. And then we can engage in great debates regarding Blake Griffin, if you want Russell Westbrook, if you're a fan of wrestling. It's a great group chat application. It's super easy. Literally, it takes seconds to join, and it's real fun. It's real easy. We can connect with fans. And hey, if you run a podcast, if you're starting up and you see, wow, Doc and Jock are having fun, they're able to say whatever they want, and you have a podcast, all you have to do is sign up for Flick, and you can air your own podcast right there on the top page. It's a great way to build engagement, tell your audience what you're talking about. For all information regarding Flick and to join up, go to flickapp.com. That's flickapp.com. It's a direct way to talk to all the great fans of Detroit. So, cuz they finally gave away a boatload of money to the winner of the All-Star Game Home Run Derby, man. It was must-see. It was great. It was like a coming-out party for Vlad Guerrero Jr., Jock Peterson. You had, an amazing display of home runs, and it was just an unbelievable display. And I thought, man, if you missed out on the Home Run Derby, you missed out. You had this Mets rookie, Pete Alonso. He came back, and he was second in the finals, and he was going up against Vlad Guerrero Jr., and he handled his business, and it was great to see. And, I think adding the $1 million prize made people invested, and you had some top-end talent. I mean, Vlad Guerrero hit 91 home runs.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Now, the game in and of itself, not the best. I mean, it wasn't that exciting. Yeah, maybe you wanted to peek in to see what Shane Green did, Verlander starting. The All-Star game in and of itself, not the coolest, but the Home Run Derby, I thought was must-see, and I thought it made for an exciting television display. Now, for me, a little bit long. That's the only critique I had, was the fact that, damn, you want these guys hitting home runs for 4 minutes and giving them 30 seconds of bonus time? I'm like, God, these guys need like 4 timeouts. They're huffing and puffing. But holy cow, there was a stretch there where I think Vlad Guerrero took 25 swings and hit like 21 home runs, and he was launching the baseball. I was like, man. Obviously, we're all jealous here in Detroit because there's no young-end, high-end talent like that on your team. But all in all, the Home Run Derby was awesome. I thought that, hey, adding that $1 million prize was significant to these guys because it doubled their salary. I mean, Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Alonso are only making like $500K each, so it's big money.
Alonso was making $555,000.
Yeah,
so he essentially
big money.
Doubled his salary. That's absolutely crazy. And you're right. It was an awesome display. It was a lot of fun. It gave you something to talk about. The Home Run Derby was great. As far as the actual All-Star game goes,
I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, me neither.
I didn't watch it. You sent me a tweet like, hey, let's talk about the All-Star game. And I was like, cool, I'm not watching that shit.
Exactly.
I'm not. Like,
I probably should have said Home Run Derby.
I'm not invested in watching this exhibition. It was a close game. The AL won again.
Solid.
cool. It was. I mean, I don't know. It's.
Yeah,
I don't know. There's nothing there to really talk about. I thought the coolest thing was, and if you go, you can pretty much find it almost anywhere. You had Freddie Freeman
mic'd up,
talking through his entire at bat while Justin Verlander was pitching to him, and you could hear him and Verlander going back and forth. And he was talking to the catcher, he was talking to the umpire. That was cool. That was really awesome because you get to see what these guys are seeing, and kind of they're walking you through their process as the pitches are coming in, after the pitch, and kind of what they thought they saw. On top of that, you got Joe Buck in dude's ear, and Joe Buck just grates on everybody's nerves. So that was cool.
And if you just want to look at that at bat, that was so sick because Verlander fires in a fastball and then has some wicked curveballs, and he strikes him out with it, and it was awesome to see. And then Verlander walks off kind of like, yeah, I just got you. It was cool. He had that swagger. But yeah, exactly. The home run derby I thought was done very well. It could be just a little bit shorter. But in terms of what some people are not happy with, do you care that a guy like Vlad Guerrero hits 91 home runs and the guy that won it only hits 50, but he ends up winning it? But it's a tournament style.
It is.
You can't make it perfect.
Right. I get the talking point, right? But like you said, it's a tournament. So these things are going to happen. I don't know how you fix that. I really don't. I think this is as good as this gets, because I don't know how you correct that or how you change that without just being like, oh, total number wins. Well, if that's the case,
you don't have to have a bracket. Yeah.
Right. You've got to carry everything over for however many rounds. And tournament style is the best.
You know what you do? You have $1 million first prize, but a bonus of $500K if you hit the most home runs. A big fat bonus for going out there and getting the most.
You know what? That would
more.
Be cool.
Yeah, just adding some more money to it.
That way, it's not it's not a big deal. Right?
There's a reward for hitting 91 home runs because you realize, man, Vlad Guerrero was swinging out of his shoes and he hit 9. Like I said, he was forced to go into a couple overtimes, a swing off per se versus Jock Peterson, and it lit Twitter on fire. Everyone was like, "Oh, Vlad versus Jock, and it was so cool. Everyone was into it. Cleveland did a great job with it, but I agree with you 100%. I just think that you have to have some incentive for actually hitting the most home runs. Yeah, fascinating stuff. But there was some news made surrounding the All-Star game in that JV kind of spouted off a little bit. Got himself in a little bit of trouble, too, because he's kind of talking from his opinion and not fact-based, because he came out and spouted off and said, look, it's really weird what's going on with these baseballs, and he truly believes that the baseballs are juiced. And he comes out and he says, look, it's quite ridiculous that, Major League Baseball owns Rawlings. All of a sudden the ball changes and we're all wondering what's going on. I've given up, 26 home runs, the most that he's ever given up, the most in the majors at this point in time.
He leads the majors right now.
Exactly.
That's what he's bitching about.
So he's pissed. He's like, it's ridiculous, and he's not happy with it at all. On the other side, you have Max Scherzer, and he kind of pokes a little bit and says, yeah, it's probably something's up, something's different, but I'm not going to complain about it. My team gets to benefit from it. And so he kind of takes the more suave approach, and I think he was taking a dig at JV, saying, hey,
you think?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you think?
He called JV a crybaby.
You think?
In so many words. I thought that was cool.
You think. Hold on, real quick. Let's just delve into, there was random conspiracy theories that have been launched out there.
Yeah.
But obviously Max and JV didn't get along when they were here. It was kind of a pissing contest as to whose team this was.
Right.
And I think the
Tigers chose JV.
I think the Illiches had a bit of a fondness for JV. He came up through their farm system. This is our golden child. Whereas I think Max at this point in his career, probably a little bit more lethal than JV. JV's a stud, don't get it twisted, but I think Max has been
he's a red ass.
A little bit more of a solid performer since he's gone and signed his massive free agent deal.
First and foremost, was JV right to call out Manfred and saying the balls are juiced with no real evidence that the balls are enhanced per a directive from Major League Baseball?
Look, that's his opinion. He's being a crybaby. He's bitching is what this is. And similar to what Max Scherzer said, your batters get the benefit from that too. And I don't know if anybody's looked at Houston's lineup. I've got a bunch of them in my fantasy baseball team. They're studs.
And they're raking.
So I don't know what you're complaining about. The big issue here is JV has given up the most home runs in all of Major League Baseball right now.
Douchebag.
Yes. All of the most home runs in all of Major League Baseball, which is crazy because he started the All-Star game because he's been such an absolute stud. So I don't really know what you're so upset about, because your numbers are still really solid. You're getting the job done. You're still one of the most feared pitchers out there. And even Manfred has come out and said the baseballs aren't juiced. The flight's a little bit different. It's made completely by hand. I get what he's saying with MLB owning Rawlings, but that was more a case for the MLB to ensure that it's more of a quality control issue for baseball.
And look, here's the thing. If they are juiced, it's for the betterment of the game. I love seeing all the home runs. Now, it sucks that our Tigers are not hitting them, but across the board, in terms of what baseball needs to garner attention.
How many home runs did Vlad hit?
91.
I think the Tigers as a team have only hit 77.
Yeah. Right.
Let that sit in.
Exactly.
Holy cow,
it's not a bad thing. But yeah, if you're a pitcher, obviously you could complain. But I think you should do it privately. Why do you got to go out there and during the All-Star game and shed light on something that maybe you could just talk about behind the scenes?
Like he flamed. He
was not
Manfred.
happy.
No.
He was not happy. And then, Manfred has come out since and said, look, no, this is not true. We have not intentionally modified. But now, as a result of JV's comments, they have to investigate and kind of take a look at what's going on with the baseball. So people are looking at it, and it's a fascinating look at the game. But heck, like I said, everybody loves home runs. It's not a bad thing at all. JV needs to quit crying. And I like how Max Scherzer took the approach of like, okay, I can state my case and take a dig at JV. But now when you look at this rivalry between JV and Max Scherzer, to recall what actually happened, Max Scherzer was offered an extension by the Ilitches, but unfortunately he was highly offended. And we talked about it. We were like, dang, that's the offer you made? He took that as a great offense, and then he said, look, he didn't really offer a counter. He just let his contract run out, and then he went to the Nationals and signed a major deal, a lot more money.
12 years, $212 million.
A major deal. And then people realize, wow, now in 2019, as the Tigers struggle, we can take a look back and we can say, you know what? Maybe it was a mistake to put all your eggs in the Justin Verlander basket because eventually you traded him. You're now in this rebuild. The team is awful. If you would have kept Max Scherzer, you might have just had that one remaining piece that could have been box office as opposed to maybe going out there and signing Jordan Zimmerman to not do anything but steal your money. So I look at it and I say, you know what? In hindsight, one of the big mistakes in this rebuild, in this era with the Detroit Tigers is maybe not putting your eggs in the basket of Max Scherzer, a guy that's hungry. But at the same time, you realize, too, maybe he would have ended up being a Jordan Zimmerman. Maybe the fact that he was so offended by what the Ilitches did and the offer that they made that he's just now going out there every single day with the fuel behind him going, man, I was disrespected. The Detroit Tiger organization really put their eggs in the basket of another guy. I was sent to the minors, and I came back, and I showed them what I was able to do. I think he used that as motivation, and he continues to go out there. I mean, obviously, when the Nationals came in and it was him, Max Scherzer versus Miggy, he reared back and just unloaded, and you saw the effort that he put into it. But at the same time, you can argue that Max Scherzer could have remained a Detroit Tiger and been productive and maybe earned, and maybe he did earn a much better offer, at least, in terms of what the Ilitches offered him to try and stay.
You know why I like Max Scherzer?
Why is that?
Because his eyes are two different colors and he looks deranged.
Yeah, right?
I already told you, I like somebody who doesn't seem like they're all there.
Right.
And Max, like you said, is a total red ass. He's highly competitive. Like you said, took that offer as a slap in the face, a total disrespect. On top of that, him and JV don't get along. And honestly, it was JV's team. Max is there. Max is like, hey, homie.
What about me?
Right. Go kick rocks. I'm a better pitcher than you. And at the time, Max was not a better pitcher than JV, but Max believed in himself so damn much. He was like, it should be my squad. And he went out and he got himself a crazy, like an absolutely insane deal. So good for him. I mean, he'll be retired still collecting a paycheck. It's going to be like that Bobby Bonilla paycheck. It's just nuts. Just every year, okay, we're sending that money to me. Thank you, and thank you. I like what Max said, though. Out of all of this, when you break it down, he essentially says, quit being a crybaby, man up. If you don't like the fact that you're giving up so many home runs, throw better pitches. You're being a douche. And our guys, our hitters, benefit from it. Sorry, bro.
So here at Doc and Jock, are we saying Team Max?
Team Max all day.
Team Max, I think, all day.
Max. And that's probably not a popular opinion because everybody loves JV.
68% of the fans that voted so far on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast, they voted for Justin Verlander because he's the homegrown guy. So, Doc and Jock, we're Team Max. We think that a guy that works hard, earned the deal, probably got a little bit of disrespect. And good on you for taking a little jab. It was quite the interesting comment too. It made the All-Star game a little bit more spicy. Now, to tie it back, last topic, some news was made. The final game, I was there, Detroit Tigers versus Boston Red Sox. Miguel gets ejected for arguing balls and strikes, and you're like, oh, he's already gone from the game. But after the game, makes some comments. He's not happy, and he's not upset at guys like us critiquing him in terms of his leadership, not mad at Vito. He's mad at one of their own. And Nick Castellanos goes to Miguel Cabrera and says, do you hear what Jack Morris is saying in the papers? He's basically calling you not the best leader. And Miguel's like,
good job, Nick. Way to stir the pot.
Exactly. He's stirring the pot. He's upset. But Miguel was telling Nick, like, look,
Nick's
relax.
pissed, too. That whole clubhouse is just pissed off.
Exactly. And he's like, you know what? Don't worry about stuff like that. But Nick was really fired up and said, a guy that's not really in the clubhouse, a guy that's not really here asking us and being around, why is he calling us and calling us out and things like that? And just kind of this code that, hey, you know, maybe one of our own shouldn't be putting out stuff like that. In the last couple of weeks, Jack Morris has kind of said, like, hey, the Tigers lack leadership. They got to do better. This rebuild might not go well. And I was like, whoa, this is a Detroit Tiger guy here, and he's coming out here letting it rip. So Miguel Cabrera comes out and says, look, I want to have a talk with him. I am a leader. I want to be a leader. Gets himself ejected, arguing balls and strikes. And so I want to ask you, what's your opinion on it? Are you team Jack Morris, who says, yeah, this is not right. Miguel needs to step up, get in shape, lose some weight, take and embrace your role as a DH more seriously. Run out a ball when you swing and strike out. Don't just stand there and walk away and really portray that you're not in it 100%. Or do you say, you know what, I'm Team Miggy. This guy's battling. He's grinding. He's got this knee problem. How can he work out when he's got this degenerative knee? He's out there still hitting above 300, still in it day by day. He can be a mentor, and that there's this perception that's actually wrong in terms of his leadership. For me, I'm actually, when I really seriously look at it, I think I'm Team Miggy. I think that, you know what, this is a guy that's on a team that is going nowhere. Mm-hmm. And he's making a boatload of money, but he's still productive. Is he the same guy? Well, look, he's got a degenerative knee. He's trying to get out there. He doesn't want to be a DH. He wants to go out there and try to play first base. He's being told medically, look, you can't do it. So it's not like he's not trying. And eventually, when you do strike out, in that play in particular, look, if he would have ran at full speed, you know, you could have gave the catcher a 12-second head start. He's still going to throw the ball to first and eventually get you out. I just think that Miguel Cabrera, in terms of what he needs to be doing, probably needs to be just a guy that is a little bit less jovial, a little bit less loosey-goosey with the media, you know, joking around when his teammates are giving interviews. Just needs to go out there from time to time and speak on, yeah, it's a tough rebuild, but I got faith that Al's going to handle his business. Yeah, we re-signed him. I think that he's done a good job rebuilding. We met Riley Green. I've met some of the pitchers. They're doing a good job. Just have faith. Give us a couple years. We'll handle our business. He's got to kind of spin it a little bit more. But the fact is, he doesn't speak great English. He only speaks twice or three times a year to the media. I do think that there's this disconnect growing, that the fans of Detroit feel like, you know what, Miguel's not there and not invested, when I think he is. He's showing up, he's hitting, he's productive. Now, is he the type of leader that Jack Morris is? No, it's different. And I do think that Jack Morris, in terms of what he said, maybe is also, you know, spicing it up a little bit and, you know, swaying the fans to perceive Miguel in a negative way. I think Miguel Cabrera is doing fine. He can't do really that much more. The team sucks. He could go out there and scream and yell and point fingers. The team is not good enough. So I think he has a point where he says, look, the 1984 team had a bunch of veterans that went through it and they were ready to go. This team is totally different. Ease up a little bit and just wait a little bit until we get a little bit more reinforcements, until some of our guys that are actually on the team come back. They had a team that, prior to the injuries, was around 500. Now, when you have an injured Jordan Zimmerman, Tyson Ross, Matt Moore, when you have this plethora of injuries to guys that you brought on, it's not the same team. So I think that, in my opinion, Miguel's getting a raw deal here in terms of all this talk about his leadership.
I think Jack's fairly in the right here. Look, Miguel Cabrera's on pace to set a career high in strikeouts, and he's on pace to set a career low in slugging percentage. He's not been very good. I get that he's injured. I get that he's banged up. I understand all that. But you know what? You don't do a good enough job taking care of yourself in the offseason. You always come into camp overweight. When it comes time for handling certain parts of the business and being the leader that you say that you are, you can't be found. You can't tell anybody anything. You don't ever really want to speak to the media. You can't have it both ways. Either you are or you aren't. And this is something that me and you have talked about for years now. For years, we've always called in Miguel Cabrera's leadership into question because you don't ever see it. You know, when Victor Martinez was here, and Victor Martinez ended up getting injured, and he was away from the team when he ended up blowing his ACL out. That team, that clubhouse, was in complete and utter disarray. And if Miguel Cabrera was such a good leader, why wasn't he taking control and leading? Miguel Cabrera is not a leader. It just, either you are or you aren't. And he's not. And that's okay. You're going to be the highest paid guy on the team. Just don't expect guys to listen to you or follow your lead because you're not very good at it. The highest paid guy is not always the leader. Doesn't always have to be that way. I go back to the Detroit Red Wings, and you want to see a leader? Number 19 was a leader. Steve Yzerman was a leader. You want to talk about a degenerative knee? Steve Yzerman was out there basically bone on bone, and the guy could hardly do anything, could hardly skate. But you know what? He'd go out there, win faceoffs in his own zone, make sure the puck got cleared out to the forwards, and then he would skate off for a change because that was all he could do. That's a leader. That's a guy who basically laid it on the line every single shift, every single play. Now, I get that they don't play the same amount of games. That's fine. Okay? That's fine. But his knee condition, much worse than what Miguel Cabrera is going through right now, and he did it for longer. And you know what? He took less money and did it day in, day out, and he led that team. We had Darren McCarty on. Darren McCarty said, I'm a soldier in his army. Why? Because he led him. That's a guy that he reveres because of what he sacrificed. I'm not saying Miguel Cabrera doesn't make the sacrifice. I'm just saying Miguel Cabrera can't have it both ways. If you're going to be a leader, you're going to be a leader. If you're not, then just shut up.
Do you think the fans of Detroit are going to turn on Miggy in the next couple seasons?
Yes.
Big money, $120 million due.
And the lack of production, and then too much of this, too much talking.
One final note, Lynn Henning in the paper, I'm sure you saw it, comes out on Twitter and he says, it's time. This act that I'm seeing in terms of mocking Gordon Beckham for doing an interview, in terms of the fact that he is overweight, in terms of the fact that, hey, his production, he just said, it's time, write him a check and let him go. Would you do that? Write him a check and just say, hey, you know what? Cut him. It's not feasible, but would you do it if it was possible? Would you just say, you know what, Miguel, here's $120 million, see ya?
No. I would
just take the money and run.
I would try to work out some type of trade. You throw in cash considerations.
Pay half of it.
Yeah. And you get something back in return.
Anything.
Yes.
Let him go.
Yep.
So you're in agreement with Lynn. Probably doesn't need to be on the team, but you can't just write him a check to have him go away. You can't get nothing for him.
And no, you can't. No, there's too much money invested and too much time. Why would you do that? The thing with Miguel Cabrera, I don't have a problem with his personality. I mean, you could be happy, you can be a jokester, you can be a prankster. I mean, if that's what you are, that's what you are. I think it's great. I think it's fun. It's cool. But all that being said, when you're being a clown, and not being a clown in a good way when you get on the base path and you're messing around with the first baseman. When you're being a clown in the locker room or in the dugout and it hurts the team, that's what I have a problem with. Gotcha. I don't have a problem with you being a fun guy. Everybody needs a guy like that in the locker room.
Great podcast, man. That hour flew by.
It did. So fast.
Very good stuff. Again, you can follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you agree, disagree with anything, you want to leave a voicemail, 248-579-8686, or join the Flick application, and we can have some great debates and some great chats. Thank you for downloading the latest edition of Doc and Jock.
It's not over yet, so you can ask me that one next week.
Go blue, bitch.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things